The dust-caked window of Blackwater Saloon revealed nothing but misery on the day Rosalie Prescott arrived in Copper Creek, her wrists bound with coarse rope that cut into her skin. It was 1878, and the mining town nestled in the Colorado Territory had seen its share of broken souls, but none quite like the auburn-haired woman whose green eyes still managed to flash defiance despite 3 days without proper food or rest. Fresh from Boston, announced Silas Mercer, the balding trader who'd purchased her debt papers from the stagecoach driver who'd brought her west. Educated, too, reads and writes better than most men in this town. 5 men gathered around her like vultures, examining her as if she were nothing more than a prized mare at auction. Rosalie kept her chin high, despite the humiliation burning through her veins. 6 months ago, she had been teaching at a respectable ladies' school in Massachusetts. Now, after her father's gambling debts and sudden death had left her destitute, she found herself being sold to cover his obligations. 200, called a silver-haired man with tobacco-stained teeth. 300, countered another, a heavy-set mine owner whose eyes lingered too long on the bodice of her travel-worn dress. She ain't worth more than 150, argued a third. Looks half-starved. Rosalie's stomach churned with both hunger and disgust. She'd heard tales of debt slavery in the West, but had never imagined herself falling victim to such barbarity. The law might call it indentured service or debt repayment, but she knew the truth. They were trading her like livestock. 500, came a new voice, silencing the room. The crowd parted, revealing a tall figure standing in the doorway, backlit by the harsh midday sun. As he stepped forward, Rosalie saw a man unlike the others, younger, perhaps 30, with broad shoulders beneath a dust-covered duster coat. His face, partially shadowed by his wide-brimmed hat, bore the weathered lines of someone who'd spent years under the open sky. "Noah Blackburn," someone whispered, and the room's tension shifted immediately. The newcomer approached slowly, boots echoing on the wooden floor. When he reached Rosalie, he didn't ogle or leer like the others. Instead, his blue eyes met hers directly, seeing beyond her current state to something the others had missed. "I see a woman worthy of rest and bread," he said quietly, though his words carried throughout the silent saloon. Then louder. To Mercer, $500, cash, and I want those ropes off her now. Mercer's greedy eyes widened at the generous offer. Deal. Noah Blackburn counted out the money while Mercer untied Rosalie's hands. The sensation of blood rushing back to her fingers was painful, but she refused to show weakness. "Why?" she managed to ask when they stepped outside into the dusty street. "Because no person should be sold like cattle," he answered simply. "My ranch is about 3 miles outside town. You can work as my housekeeper until your debt's paid. Then you're free to go wherever you please. You'll have your own room with a lock, regular meals, and Sundays off." He paused. "I won't touch you. You have my word." For the first time in weeks, Rosalie felt something other than despair, a cautious spark of hope. But experience had taught her to be wary of men bearing gifts. "How long until my debt is paid?" she asked, rubbing her raw wrists. "At fair wages? About 10 months. He helped her onto his wagon without presumption. "I figure that's better than what those vultures had in mind." As the wagon pulled away from Copper Creek, Rosalie watched the town recede, wondering if she'd just escaped one cage for another. But the open land stretching before them, painted in golds and reds by the setting sun, felt like freedom after weeks of confinement. "Thank you," she said finally, her voice barely audible over the creaking wheels. Noah nodded once, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Everyone deserves dignity, Miss Prescott, even in a place that often forgets it." The ranch came into view as twilight descended a modest 2-story house with a wide porch, flanked by a barn and several smaller outbuildings. Unlike the opulent homes Rosalie had known in Boston, this place was built for function rather than show. Yet there was something undeniably inviting about its sturdy presence against the backdrop of mountains. "It's not much," Noah said, misreading her silence for disappointment, "but it's solid. Keeps out the rain and most of the cold." "It's lovely," she replied honestly. After weeks of uncertainty, even the simple promise of shelter felt like luxury. Inside, a Hispanic woman in her 50s greeted them warmly. "So this is the teacher Copper Creek's been buzzing about," she said, her accent slight but melodious. "I am Elena Vasquez. I cook and help manage the house." "Elena's been with me since I built this place," Noah explained. "She'll show you around and get you settled." While Noah took care of the horses, Elena led Rosalie upstairs to a small but clean bedroom. A single window overlooked the valley, and simple furniture, a narrow bed, washstand, and dresser filled the space. "The door locks from inside," Elena pointed out. "Mr. Blackburn is a good man, but he understands a woman alone needs her privacy." "Has he had many housekeepers?" Rosalie asked carefully. Elena's laugh was warm and knowing. "You are the first. Usually it is just me, coming 3 days each week. But the house needs a full-time hand, and Mr. Blackburn has been too stubborn to admit it." She patted Rosalie's arm. "Rest now. Tomorrow will be soon enough to learn your duties." Left alone, Rosalie sank onto the bed, exhaustion finally overwhelming her. The mattress, though firm, felt like heaven after weeks of hard benches and dirty floors. She hadn't truly slept since leaving Boston, always alert for danger. But here, with a locked door between her and the world, she allowed herself to surrender to sleep. Morning came with the scent of coffee and bacon. Rosalie woke disoriented, momentarily forgetting where she was until the previous day's events rushed back. She dressed quickly in the cleanest of her travel-worn garments and made her way downstairs. In the kitchen, she found Elena at the stove and Noah at the table, studying a ledger. He stood when she entered, a gesture of respect she hadn't expected. "Good morning, Miss Prescott. I hope you slept well." "Better than I have in weeks, thank you." Elena placed a heaping plate before her, eggs, bacon, and biscuits, still steaming from the oven. Rosalie tried not to appear ravenous as she ate, but it had been days since she had had a proper meal. "Once you've finished, Elena will show you around," Noah said. "I need to check the north pasture, but I'll be back by sundown." He hesitated, then added, "This is your home now, at least until your debt is paid. I hope you'll be comfortable here." After he left, Elena showed Rosalie the household routines: laundry on Mondays, baking on Tuesdays, and so forth. The work would be demanding but fair, and far preferable to whatever fate awaited her with the men at the saloon. "Mr. Blackburn, he is not like other men," Elena confided as they hung sheets on the line. "His father was a cruel man who treated workers like animals. Noah swore he would never become like him." "How did he end up here?" Rosalie asked, curious about her taciturn benefactor. "He came west after the war. Too many ghosts back east, I think. Started with nothing but that horse and his rifle. Built everything you see with his own hands." As the days passed, Rosalie settled into ranch life. The work was hard but satisfying, and for the first time since her father's death, she felt safe. Noah was often absent during daylight hours, tending to cattle or fixing fences, but in the evenings they would share supper, sometimes talking about books or current events, sometimes sitting in companionable silence. She learned he had fought for the Union during the Civil War, had a weakness for apple pie, and could quote Shakespeare as easily as he could mend a saddle. He never asked about her past, seeming to understand her need to leave it behind. 3 weeks after her arrival, Rosalie was in the garden harvesting vegetables when she heard a horse approaching. Expecting Noah, she looked up with a smile that quickly faded when she saw Silas Mercer instead. "Well, well," he drawled, dismounting. "The Boston schoolmarm playing farmer's wife. How domestic." Rosalie straightened, basket clutched to her chest like a shield. "Mr. Blackburn isn't here. You can state your business with me." "Oh, I think not." Mercer stepped closer, his breath sour with whiskey despite the early hour. "Just checking on my investment. Blackburn may have paid for you, but I got a feeling he ain't getting his money's worth." "My arrangement with Mr. Blackburn is none of your concern." Mercer's hand shot out, gripping her arm. "Everything in this territory is my concern, girl. You'd do well to remember that." "Let her go." Noah's voice cut through the tension like a knife. He stood at the garden gate, rifle held casually but unmistakably ready. "You're trespassing, Mercer." The trader released Rosalie's arm but didn't step back. "Just paying a social call, Blackburn. No law against being neighborly." "There's a law against harassment." Noah's voice remained even, but his eyes had hardened to flint. "Miss Prescott works for me now. Her debt's been paid in full, so you have no claim here." "We'll see about that," Mercer muttered, but he mounted his horse. "This territory's changing, Blackburn. Men like you loners, idealists, you're a dying breed. Progress is coming, whether you like it or not." After he left, Noah turned to Rosalie. "Are you all right?" She nodded, though her arm still throbbed where Mercer had gripped it. "He seems to hold considerable influence in town." "He does." Noah's jaw tightened. "Mercer represents Eastern investors looking to buy up land for railroads and mining, men who see people as assets to be used and discarded." His eyes met hers. "I should have warned you he might come around." "You couldn't have known," she hesitated. "Did you mean what you said? About my debt being paid?" "Your debt was never to me, Rosalie. I paid it to free you, not to own you." His voice softened. "But I hope you'll stay on as my housekeeper. I'll pay fair wages, and you can save for wherever you want to go next." The offer was generous, but Rosalie realized with some surprise that she didn't want to leave. In the short time she'd been at the ranch, it had begun to feel like home in a way Boston never had. "I'd like to stay," she said, "at least for now." Something flickered in Noah's eyes, relief perhaps, or something warmer, before he nodded. "Good. That's good." As spring gave way to summer, the ranch flourished under their combined care. Rosalie discovered an unexpected talent for gardening, expanding the vegetable patch and adding herbs that Elena taught her to use in cooking. She started keeping the ranch's accounts as well, her education proving useful when dealing with cattle buyers and suppliers. Noah, she noticed, began spending more time at the house. He built bookshelves in the sitting room and filled them with volumes ordered from Denver history, poetry, novels she'd mentioned missing from her teaching days. In the evenings, sometimes they would read aloud to each other, his deep voice giving new life to familiar words. They were sitting on the porch one evening, watching a spectacular sunset paint the sky in shades of fire, when Noah broke their comfortable silence. "Why did you come west, Rosalie?" he asked. "You don't have to tell me, but I've wondered." She considered deflecting the question as she always had, but found she wanted him to know. "My father died 6 months ago. He was a professor at Harvard, respected, brilliant, and secretly addicted to gambling." The words came easier than she'd expected. "When he died, I discovered he'd mortgaged everything, including our home. The creditors took it all. That doesn't explain how you ended up bound for sale in Copper Creek. I had an uncle in San Francisco who offered me a position teaching his children. I sold my mother's jewelry for the stagecoach fare, but we were robbed near Cheyenne. The driver said I could work off my passage in Copper Creek." Her laugh held no humor. "I didn't realize what kind of work he had in mind until we arrived and he handed my papers to Mercer." Noah's hand found hers in the growing darkness, warm and steady. "I'm sorry that happened to you. No one deserves such treatment." "It led me here," she said softly, not pulling her hand away. "Perhaps it was worth it." His eyes, reflecting the last golden light of day, searched hers. For a moment she thought he might say more, or perhaps even kiss her. Instead, he gently squeezed her hand before releasing it. "We should go in," he said. "Early day tomorrow." That night, Rosalie lay awake, replaying the moment on the porch. In Boston, she'd had suitors proper young men with proper intentions, who never stirred her blood the way Noah's simple touch had. It was foolish, she knew, to develop feelings for her employer. Yet the way he looked at her sometimes, as if seeing something precious and rare, made her wonder if perhaps she wasn't alone in her growing attachment. The next morning, Noah announced he needed to travel to Denver on business. "I'll be gone about a week," he told her over breakfast. "Will you be all right here with just Elena coming by?" Of course, she assured him, hiding her disappointment. Is everything okay? Just some legal matters regarding the ranch. He hesitated. And I thought I might look into something for you as well. For me? The school in Copper Creek has no teacher. Children are growing up unable to read or write. I thought, with your experience, you want me to teach? The possibility sent a thrill through her. But Mercer doesn't control the school board, and the town's growing new families arriving who want education for their children. His eyes held hers. You wouldn't have to give up working here. The school only meets 4 days a week. The thoughtfulness of his suggestion touched her deeply. I'd like that very much. Thank you for thinking of it. He left the following morning, the house feeling strangely empty without his presence. Rosalie threw herself into work, deep cleaning rooms that didn't need it, and baking enough bread and pies to feed an army. You miss him, Elena observed on her third day alone, catching Rosalie staring out the window toward the road to town. It wasn't a question. He's a good employer, Rosalie deflected. Elena's knowing smile said she wasn't fooled. He is a good man, the best I know, and he looks at you the way my Fernando used to look at me. Elena. I have eyes, Nina, and I see how you look at him too. Life is too short to deny the heart what it wants. Before Rosalie could respond, the sound of approaching horses drew their attention. Through the window, she saw 3 riders approaching, none of them. Noah. Stay inside, Elena said sharply, her expression changing to one of alarm. Those are Mercer's men. But it was too late. The men had already dismounted and were approaching the house. Rosalie recognized one as the heavy-set mine owner from the saloon. Miss Prescott, he called, we've come to escort you back to town. Rosalie stepped onto the porch, keeping the door open behind her in case she needed to retreat quickly. I have no business in town, Mr. Sullivan. That's where you're wrong. Sullivan removed his hat with mock politeness. Mercer's filed papers claiming Blackburn's payment for your debt was invalid. Judge Richardson signed an order returning you to Mercer's custody until the matter's resolved. That's absurd. Mr. Blackburn paid in full with witnesses. Witnesses can be mistaken. Sullivan's smile never reached his eyes. Now, you can come quietly, or we can make this difficult. Elena appeared beside Rosalie, a shotgun in her hands. You are not welcome here. Leave now. Sullivan's companions reached for their pistols, but he waved them off. No need for that. We're just enforcing the law. To Rosalie. Blackburn's not here to protect you, girl. Be sensible. Rosalie's mind raced. Without Noah, she had little chance against 3 armed men. Elena was brave but elderly, and Rosalie couldn't bear the thought of her being hurt. I'll go, she decided, ignoring Elena's protest. Let me get my shawl. Inside, she quickly scribbled a note explaining what had happened and where she'd gone, leaving it prominently on the kitchen table where Noah would find it. Then she pressed Elena's hands. When Noah returns, tell him not to do anything rash. This is clearly a trap. He will come for you, Elena said with absolute certainty. Whatever Mercer is planning, Noah won't let him win. In town. Rosalie was taken not to the jail, but to Mercer's office above the general store. The trader sat behind a massive desk, looking pleased with himself. Miss Prescott, welcome back to civilization. I trust Blackburn's been treating you well? Better than you're about to, she replied coldly. This charade won't work. Mr. Blackburn paid my debt legally. Perhaps. Mercer leaned back in his chair. But proving that in court could take months. Meanwhile, as your legal guardian, I can put you to work however I see fit. The implication made her stomach turn. What do you want? Blackburn's land. Mercer's pretense at cordiality vanished. His ranch sits on what will be the main line when the railroad comes through. He's refused every offer, sentimental fool that he is. So I'm leverage. Smart girl. When Blackburn returns and finds you gone, he'll come charging in here ready to tear the town apart, and when he does, I'll offer a simple trade you for his deed. Rosalie maintained her composure, despite her racing heart. You underestimate him. He's not a reckless man. Every man has his breaking point. Mercer stood. You'll be staying at Widow Parker's boarding house under guard. I suggest you make yourself comfortable. It could be a long wait." The room at the boarding house was sparse, but clean. A guard was posted outside her door, and the windows were nailed shut. Rosalie sat on the narrow bed, forcing herself to think clearly. Mercer was right about one thing: Noah would come for her. But she couldn't bear the thought of him losing his ranch because of her. 3 days passed with no word from Noah. Rosalie was allowed to leave her room only for meals, always under watch. On the 4th day, Mercer visited, his expression sour. "Your cowboy's smarter than I gave him credit for," he admitted grudgingly. "He's filed a counterclaim in Denver, got himself a fancy lawyer too." Hope surged within her. "You won't win. Maybe not in court, but I always have other options." His smile chilled her. "Sullivan's taken a shine to you. He's offered to buy your debt marriage license included. I'm considering it. You can't legally force me to marry anyone. Out here, the line between legal and practical gets mighty thin." He tipped his hat mockingly. "Think on it, Miss Prescott. Blackburn's land or Sullivan's bed, your choice." After he left, Rosalie paced the small room, fighting panic. She needed to get word to Noah, warn him about Mercer's threats. But how? Her chance came unexpectedly the next morning when Mrs. Parker herself brought breakfast instead of the usual serving girl. "Eat quickly," the widow whispered, glancing nervously at the door. "Your guard stepped out for a smoke. There's a horse behind the house and a clear road to Blackburn's ranch if you ride fast." Rosalie stared at her, stunned. "Why are you helping me?" "Mercer foreclosed on my husband's store after he died. I know what that man is capable of." She pressed a small key into Rosalie's hand. "The back stairs. Hurry." Heart pounding, Rosalie followed Mrs. Parker's instructions. The horse, a steady-looking mare, was exactly where promised. With a silent prayer of thanks, Rosalie mounted and urged the animal into a gallop, taking the back road out of town. She was halfway to the ranch when she heard hoofbeats behind her. Glancing back, she saw 2 riders in pursuit: Sullivan and one of Mercer's other men. Panic gave her courage, and she pushed the mare harder, but the men were gaining. The sound of a rifle shot cracked through the air. Rosalie ducked instinctively, but the bullet wasn't aimed at her. It struck the ground near Sullivan's horse, causing the animal to rear in panic. "The next one won't miss," called a familiar voice. Noah emerged from a stand of trees ahead, rifle raised. Behind him were 2 other men Rosalie recognized as neighboring ranchers. Sullivan and his companion reined in their horses, clearly outgunned. "This is none of your business, Peterson," Sullivan called to one of Noah's companions. "A man using the law to steal a woman and a ranch makes it my business," the rancher replied. "Now turn around before my trigger finger gets itchy." With murderous glares, but no further argument, Sullivan and his man retreated toward town. Noah lowered his rifle and rode to Rosalie's side. "Are you hurt?" "No, just frightened." The relief of seeing him made her dizzy. "How did you know I'd be on this road?" "I didn't. We were headed to town to confront Mercer." His eyes searched her face. "Elena got word to me about what happened. I've been in Denver getting legal help. Mercer wants your ranch. He thought he could use me to force you to sign it over." Noah's jaw tightened. "He'll never get it, and he'll never touch you again. I promise you that." The conviction in his voice warmed her more than any blanket could have. "What happens now?" "We go home," he said simply. "The territorial judge will be in Copper Creek next week. Until then, you'll be safe at the ranch." The week that followed was tense but peaceful. Noah doubled the ranch hands and kept rifles at the ready, but Mercer made no move against them. Rosalie found herself watching Noah more closely than ever, the quiet competence with which he managed the crisis, the gentle way he assured her of her safety without making her feel helpless. The night before they were to ride into town for the hearing, Noah found Rosalie on the porch, gazing at stars that seemed impossibly bright against the black velvet sky. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, settling beside her on the bench. "Too much on my mind." She pulled her shawl tighter against the evening chill. "What if the judge sides with Mercer?" "He won't. We have the law and the facts on our side. And if that's not enough," Noah was quiet for a moment, "then we'll go somewhere else. Colorado's not the only territory with good land." "We?" The word hung between them, filled with possibility. "Rosalie," Noah turned to face her fully. "I told myself I wouldn't speak of this until your situation was resolved, until you were truly free to choose your path. But I can't risk losing you without telling you the truth." Her heart quickened. "What truth is that?" "That I love you." The words were simple, but spoken with a depth of feeling that took her breath away. "I think I began falling in love the moment I saw you in that saloon, standing proud despite everything. And every day since has only confirmed what I knew then, that you are the bravest, strongest woman I've ever known." Tears blurred Rosalie's vision, but they were tears of joy. "I love you too," she whispered. "I tried not to. I told myself it was gratitude or safety I was feeling, but it's so much more than that." Noah's hand, calloused but gentle, cupped her cheek. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that my home is yours for as long as you want it. Not as my housekeeper, but as my wife if you'll have me." In answer, Rosalie leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was tender at first, then deepened with months of unspoken longing. When they finally parted, both were breathless. "Is that a yes?" Noah asked, a rare smile lighting his features. "Yes," she laughed, joy bubbling up inside her. 1,000 times, yes. The territorial court convened in Copper Creek Small Church the following morning. Judge Wallace Hendricks, a stern-faced man with a reputation for fairness, presided. The building was packed with townspeople curious about the case that had caused such a stir. Mercer's lawyer presented their claim first, that Noah's payment was invalid because Rosalie's debt papers had allegedly been altered to increase the amount. It was a flimsy argument, and Rosalie could see the judge's skepticism. When it was their turn, Noah's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Catherine Chambers, whom he'd brought from Denver, systematically dismantled Mercer's case. She produced the original debt documents, witnesses to the payment, and most damaging of all, evidence that Mercer had attempted to bribe the local sheriff to support his claim. Judge Hendricks needed less than an hour of deliberation. "This court finds that Mr. Blackburn's payment was legal and binding," he announced. "Miss Prescott's debt is considered paid in full, and she is a free citizen with all rights thereof. Furthermore," he added, glaring at Mercer, "this court refers the matter of attempted witness tampering to the federal marshal for investigation." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Mercer stormed out, face purple with rage, while Sullivan and his cronies slunk after him. But Rosalie hardly noticed, too caught up in the relief washing over her. Outside the church, several townspeople approached them. Among them was a balding man who introduced himself as chairman of the school board. "Miss Prescott, I understand you were a teacher back east," he said. "Our schoolhouse has been without an instructor for months. We'd be honored if you consider the position." Before she could respond, Noah spoke up. "Miss Prescott may indeed be interested in teaching," he said, taking her hand. "But I should mention that she'll soon be Mrs. Blackburn, if that makes any difference." The chairman beamed. "Not at all. Many of our teachers are married ladies. The position is yours if you want it, Mrs. Blackburn to be." As they rode home, Rosalie's heart felt lighter than it had in years. "Mrs. Blackburn," she tested the name. "I like the sound of that." "So do I." Noah's smile was tender. "How soon do you want to make it official?" "How about Sunday? Elena would never forgive us if we didn't give her time to bake a proper wedding cake." Noah laughed, a rare and wonderful sound. Sunday it is. They were married in the ranch house with Elena, the neighboring ranchers, and a few townspeople as witnesses. Rosalie wore a simple cream dress ordered from Denver, and Noah looked handsome in a new black suit. The ceremony was brief, but the celebration lasted well into the evening, with music and dancing and more food than Rosalie had seen in one place since coming west. Later, when the guests had gone and they were finally alone, Noah carried her across the threshold of what was now their bedroom, his room, expanded and redecorated in the week before the wedding. "Welcome home, Mrs. Blackburn," he whispered before kissing her with a passion that left no doubt about his feelings. In the weeks that followed, they settled into married life with surprising ease. Rosalie began teaching at the Copper Creek School 4 days a week, riding into town each morning on a gentle mare Noah had given her as a wedding gift. The work was challenging but fulfilling, her 16 students ranging in age from 6 to 16, with abilities just as varied. At home, she and Noah found a rhythm that suited them both. They worked side by side during the day and read to each other in the evenings. At night, they discovered the joys of physical love, their passion for each other growing rather than diminishing with familiarity. Mercer left town shortly after the trial, his influence diminished by the judge's findings. Sullivan remained, but gave the Blackburns a wide berth, especially after Noah was elected to the town council and began pushing for stricter enforcement of territorial laws regarding labor and debt. As autumn painted the landscape in gold and crimson, Rosalie made a discovery that filled her with both excitement and trepidation. After 3 mornings of nausea, she was fairly certain she was carrying Noah's child. She chose to tell him on a Sunday morning as they lingered over coffee, the house quiet with Elena away visiting family. "Noah," she began, suddenly nervous, "do you remember when we talked about expanding the house someday?" He looked up from his newspaper, eyebrows raised. "I recall mentioning it might be nice to have more room eventually." "Why?" "Because we might need it sooner than we thought." She took a deep breath. "I believe I'm going to have a baby." The newspaper dropped forgotten to the floor as Noah stared at her, processing her words. Then his face broke into the most radiant smile she'd ever seen. "A baby," he repeated, voice thick with emotion. "Our baby." He was on his knees beside her chair in an instant, hands gently cradling her still flat stomach. "When?" "Probably late spring. May, I think." Noah pressed a reverent kiss to her abdomen before looking up at her with eyes shining with unshed tears. "I never thought I could be this happy," he confessed. "You've given me everything I never dared hope for." Rosalie ran her fingers through his hair, her own eyes misting. "And you gave me a home when I had nothing. You saw me as a person when others saw property." "I saw a woman worthy of rest and bread," he quoted his own words from that first day. "But I found a woman worthy of love and a lifetime." Winter came early that year, blanketing the ranch in snow by mid-November. Noah added 2 rooms to the house before the weather turned a nursery adjoining their bedroom and a small study where Rosalie could prepare her lessons in grade school work. With the passes often blocked by snow, Copper Creek settled into the quiet isolation of winter. The school closed for a month during the worst weather, giving Rosalie time to rest as her pregnancy progressed. Though the morning sickness passed, she tired easily, and Noah insisted she nap every afternoon. "You're coddling me," she protested one evening as he massaged her swollen feet before the fire. "I'm caring for my wife and child," he corrected. "There's a difference." Elena, who'd practically adopted them both, kept Rosalie well fed with nourishing soups and fresh bread. She also shared old Mexican remedies for pregnancy discomforts and knitted tiny garments for the baby. "It will be a boy," she predicted confidently, holding a ball of blue yarn. "Strong like his father, but smart like his mother." "You sound very certain," Rosalie laughed. "I have delivered 17 babies in my life," Elena informed her. "I know these things." Christmas brought a temporary thaw and visitors to the ranch neighboring families bearing gifts and well wishes. Rosalie, now visibly showing, received knowing smiles from the women and hearty congratulations for Noah from the men. In the quiet of Christmas night, after their guests had gone, Noah presented Rosalie with a special gift, a handcrafted cradle made from cherry wood. "It took me 3 months," he admitted as she ran her hands over the smooth, polished surface. "Elena kept you busy whenever I needed to work on it." "It's beautiful," she whispered, touched beyond words by the love evident in every detail. "Our baby will treasure it. And I treasure you." Noah knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "This time last year, I was alone, convinced I would always be so. Now I have you, our child on the way, a true home instead of just a house. You've made me believe in second chances, Rosalie. She leaned forward to kiss him, pouring all her love into the gesture. We saved each other, she said simply, and we'll keep doing so every day. Spring arrived with its promise of renewal. The ranch came alive with new calves, wildflowers, and the anticipation of the baby's birth. Dr. Matthews from town visited regularly to check on Rosalie's progress, pronouncing both mother and child healthy. Rosalie had stopped teaching in April when the journey to town became too uncomfortable. She missed her students, but found pleasure in preparing the nursery and helping Noah plan for the ranch's future. I was thinking, he said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, his hand resting on her rounded belly where the baby kicked energetically. What if we started a school right here on the ranch? A school? Rosalie shifted to see his face better. For the children too far from town to attend regularly. The Petersons, the Garcias, the Wilsons. They all have youngsters who get minimal education because of distance. We could convert the old storage barn, hire an assistant for you after the baby's old enough. The idea took root immediately in Rosalie's mind. We could offer boarding during the worst weather. Some of the older girls could help with the younger children in exchange for advanced lessons. Noah's smile was tender. I knew you'd improve on my idea, so you like it? I love it. She covered his hand with hers. It combines everything important to us: education, community, this land. Then we'll make it happen. He sealed the promise with a kiss. Labor began on a warm May morning, earlier than expected. Elena sent one of the ranch hands galloping for Dr. Matthews while she prepared the bedroom with practiced efficiency. Noah, pale but steady, refused to leave Rosalie's side despite tradition dictating men wait elsewhere. Your place is with me, Rosalie insisted through gritted teeth when Elena suggested he wait downstairs. We started this together. The birth was long and difficult. By nightfall, Rosalie was exhausted, her strength flagging as contractions continued without progress. The baby's turned wrong, Dr. Matthews explained quietly to Noah. I may need to use forceps. Noah's face tightened with fear, but he kept his voice calm for Rosalie's sake. Do whatever you must to save them both. In the end, it was Elena's experience that made the difference. Working alongside the doctor, she helped shift the baby's position through external manipulation, allowing for a natural birth just when everyone's endurance was reaching its limit. A boy, Dr. Matthews announced as the newborn's lusty cry filled the room. A fine, healthy son. Noah's composure finally broke as he laid eyes on his child for the first time. Tears streamed unashamed down his face as the doctor placed the swaddled infant in Rosalie's arms. He's perfect, Rosalie whispered, counting tiny fingers and toes. Look what we made, Noah. You did the hard work, Noah said, voice rough with emotion as he perched carefully on the edge of the bed, one arm around his wife, the other hand gently touching his son's dark hair. I've never seen anything more miraculous. They named him William Thomas Blackburn William for Rosalie's father, whose flaws could not erase the love he'd given his daughter, and Thomas for Noah's childhood friend who hadn't survived the war. The following weeks passed in a blur of adjustment and joy as they learned the rhythms of caring for an infant. Noah proved a natural father, as comfortable walking the floor with a fussy baby as he was breaking wild horses. Rosalie recovered slowly but steadily, marveling at how completely little William had captured their hearts. By autumn, the ranch school was under construction. Noah hired extra men to convert the barn while maintaining the regular ranch work. Rosalie, baby often in her arms, supervised the classroom design, insisting on large windows for natural light and proper blackboards ordered from Denver. Word spread quickly, and by the time snow fell, they had commitments from 12 families to send children when the school opened in spring. The Territorial Education Board, impressed by Rosalie's credentials and Noah's detailed plans, provided official recognition and a small stipend for books and supplies. William grew into a happy, curious child with Noah's blue eyes and Rosalie's auburn hair. His first steps were taken in the newly completed schoolroom, tottering determinedly from his mother to his father across freshly laid floorboards. On the school's opening day in April 1880, nearly 2 years after Rosalie had first arrived in Copper Creek, bound and desperate, 18 students ranging from 5 to 16 filed into the converted barn, eyes wide with excitement. Rosalie, William on her hip, welcomed each one personally, while Noah hung back, watching his wife in her element with undisguised pride. That evening, after the children had gone and William was asleep in his cradle, Noah found Rosalie in the schoolroom, arranging books for the next day's lessons. "Happy?" he asked, coming to stand behind her, arms encircling her waist. Beyond words, she leaned back against his solid warmth. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life. Our life." "I was thinking about that day in the saloon," Noah admitted, "how close we came to never having all this. If I'd arrived an hour later—" Rosalie turned in his arms to face him. "But you didn't. You arrived exactly when you were meant to." "Providence," Noah murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Or just a good man recognizing a woman in need of rest and bread," she smiled. "Either way, I'm grateful every day." "As am I." He took her hand, leading her toward the house that had grown from a bachelor's practical shelter to a true family home. "And I intend to spend the rest of my life showing you just how grateful." Under the vast Colorado sky, with stars emerging one by one like distant beacons, they walked hand in hand toward their future, not a perfect one. For life in the West would always bring challenges, but when built on a foundation of respect that had blossomed into the deepest love either had known. And in the years that followed, when 2 more children joined their family and the ranch school grew to require 3 teachers, when Copper Creek became a proper town with Noah as its mayor and Rosalie heading its education committee, when William and his siblings rode the very land where their mother had once been treated as property in all those years, neither Noah nor Rosalie ever forgot the truth that had brought them together, that every person, regardless of circumstance, deserved to be seen not as possession, but as possibility, not as chattel, but as a soul worthy of dignity, rest, and the sustaining bread of both body and spirit. In a West being tamed by force and greed as often as by justice and vision, their story became something of a legend, how a woman sold like cattle found not just rescue but love in the eyes of a cowboy who saw her true worth when others saw only profit. And how together they built something neither could have created alone, a legacy of compassion that would endure long after the last cattle drive, long after the railroad had connected east to west, long after they themselves returned to the dust from which all life emerges and to which it must eventually return.